Assalamu alaikum. This is Rabbi Wise, and as I mentioned, I met him in the ESNA conference 2 years ago in Washington, D.C. I also told you, but I will repeat it because I want you to know how much I admire the energy that he is putting with his colleagues throughout the last 2.5, 3 weeks, traveling from here to there. And if I tell you how much of a hard task it is to book the tickets for them from New York, from Cleveland, from Washington, D.C. was breathtaking. Imagine the energy and the effort that they are putting because, not because of us, but because of their belief. They believe in the true divinity and peaceful nature of the Torah that Benjamin Netanyahu need to go and read. He has not read it and doesn't believe in it. Assalamu alaikum. Rabbi Wise.
Assalamu alaikum. I can't thank enough my dear friend, Dr. Sama Heikel, for bringing me here. We became fast friends in a short time because we are both doing the will with God's help of the Almighty, and we are striving to do the will of the Almighty. So I thank him, I thank all of you who are giving your time, your precious time for the people of Gaza and bearing to listen to what I have to say, but it's an important message. Again, we hope that this message will start here. It will be a catalyst that the message should go out to the world, that we may, with God's help, stop this injustice that is being perpetrated against the people, and in so doing, joining and doing the will of the Almighty that is compassionate and demands of us to do what He is, to mirror the Almighty, to be compassionate and just. I've come here not by myself, but with a delegation of rabbis, an interesting delegation, because my delegation that has come with me is from Jews from throughout the world, all of them, with God's help, Jews true to the Torah, true to the covenant of Judaism that we made with the Almighty, true to our religion and standing fast with our religion. And being that is so, these Jewish people have come out here to demand and to cry out their opposition to this occupation. That is why they have come. But these people are some. My colleague on my right is a rabbi, a young rabbi from Jerusalem who picked himself up, doesn't speak the language, left Palestine because he didn't want to be under the occupation. Just came recently. Allahu Akbar. On my left is a senior rabbi, a distinguished rabbi who's from generations. His father was a distinguished fighter against the occupation, a student of the great holy chief rabbi of Palestine. And when we speak about chief rabbi of Palestine, or when we mention the rabbinate, we don't mean that farce, that facade, that the ones who are masquerading as a rabbinate and chief rabbis of the Zionist state. They are non-existent as far as we are concerned. But there was a chief rabbi and there is today. There was a group, holy people. There were chief rabbis, and one of them was Rabbi Teitelbaum of blessed memory, who moved to the United States, who didn't want to be under the occupation, remained with the title chief rabbi of Palestine. He moved some 50 years ago and remained with that title of chief rabbi and demanded and insisted that his students, his followers, stand up and let the world know that what the Zionists are doing, what they're doing is a simple, a base crime. They have hijacked the name Judaism. They have hijacked our symbols. They have stolen our identity, and they are parading and masquerading in this to intimidate the world. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. But let you know that it is one facade. It is totally false. There is no base for their claim of Judaism. The Torah forbids us to steal. The Torah forbids us to kill and to oppress a people. We say in our holy Torah, Mahu rachum afatotei rachum. Just as God is compassionate, so must you be compassionate. These people of Palestine question, who are they? These are people of Arab descent, of Muslim descent, Arab Christian descent. These people who are living there, who are they? They are people who are not only creations of the Almighty, but they are people who help the Jewish people, as in every Muslim and Arab country, throughout trials and tribulations. For the thousands of years that we exist, in the last few hundred years and 1,000 years and 2,000 years, there were the Crusades, there was the Inquisition where Jews were forced to convert. And what did the Jewish people do? They ran away. And where did they go? To Arab and Muslim lands. They went to Morocco, they went to Tunisia, they went to Palestine and Egypt and Iran, and so forth, in Iraq. Every land opened their doors for them. These Jewish people were not hidden Jews. They were not dressed as non-Jewish people like the Zionists, but the majority of them are. But they were distinct. They were clearly marked and seen as Jewish people with their Jewish garb. And they flourished as Jewish religious community in these Arab and Muslim countries. They were embraced, they were given a safe haven. And the Jewish religion tells us that we must never forget good done to us. We must pay back and show our gratitude for good. And what is Zionism doing? Is this the gratitude they're showing for them by vilifying and claiming that there is a hate, an ingrained hate from the Muslims and Arab people to the Jews? How despicable, how repugnant, how evil this is. We as Jews are frustrated and humiliated by what is being done in our name. At the time when we should be showing our gratitude, when we have the opportunity to show our gratitude, what is being shown and done to the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, and the Muslim and Arab people in general? One thing is being shown, broadcasts incessantly, that there is an ingrained hate, that these Arab and Muslim people hate Jews and hate Christians. How despicable, how terrible. We cannot stand by silently when this is happening. We are required to stand up and yell out that this will end, this must end, this occupation must end. Many, many years since the Zionist movement started, the rabbis, the senior leaders of the Jewish people, Zionism started in Europe, and when they started with this movement, this heretical movement, the rabbis pleaded with the Jews, and the Jews listened, and they stood, distanced themselves from this group, from these Zionists. It was quite clear. What is Zionism? Zionism is a transformation. Judaism is subservience to God, accepting the covenant that we did on Mount Sinai some 3,000 years ago. And what is Zionism? It is a base material nationalism, a selfish, flawed political movement to have a piece of land, simply 100-odd years, and yet they have the audacity, the chutzpah, the nerve to use our identity, flaunt it, and claim that they are the sole representatives of this Jewish religion. Not only not the sole representatives of the Jewish people, but they have no right whatsoever to use any symbol of Judaism. Anything that has to do with our religion has nothing to do with them. This is clear. They are the antithesis of our religion. They are the contradiction to what it means to be a Jew. As I said, the Torah forbids us to kill and steal. And ironically, the Torah forbids the Jewish people, even in an uninhabited land, to create a sovereignty. Since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, Jews were explicitly commanded by the Almighty through a prophecy of King Solomon that we are not to attempt to make even 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty. And this was respected by the Jews and upheld for 2,000 years, even though we went through so much suffering. Yet, this movement, this relatively new movement called Zionism, comes along and demands that they are the voice of Jews, and the Jews, the hundreds of thousands, the Jews who are true to God and give their lives to practice their religion, whether it is in Jerusalem or New York or London or Australia, they ridicule these Jews and dismiss us as fanatics. Why? Because we keep a religion. They're not fanatics because they don't believe in God. Yeah, that's what it's all about. So let them say it. They don't believe in God. They claim that God can't protect us, but their Uzi and the Iron Domes are going to protect us. So what do we have? 66 years and more of endless rivers of bloodshed. Never a year goes by in peace and tranquility. Anti-Semitism grows in leaps and bounds. Zionism is the greatest factory of exacerbating anti-Semitism throughout the world. Their hands are covered in blood. They are the root cause of the endless river of blood of both Palestinian people and Jewish people. Face it, know it. Don't fool yourself. Just because the media is pressured and the main media, the mainstream media, is under a pressure not to report, don't follow them. We have, thank God, God gave an opportunity to open the windows that the light can shine in through alternative media where the truth can be seen and people are awakening. So we plead with the people throughout the world, step back. Do not be intimidated. Do not be fearful that you will be accused of being anti-Semitic. This has nothing to do with a religious conflict. Do not be afraid. If it would be a religious conflict, how come for hundreds and hundreds of years Jews thrived and flourished in every Arab and Muslim land? How come? Was there a United Nations? Was there a human rights groups to protect us? Not even one human rights group existed then. And yet, you can look with your own eyes and see the synagogues. You can see the centers that flourished for hundreds of years. You can see the cemeteries of generations of Jews that existed in all these Muslim and Arab lands. Why? Because this is not a religious conflict. Yes, we have distinct differences. We have a distinctly different religion. But this was never an impediment to peace. The impediment to peace was created with the creation of Zionism. Zionism raised its ugly head a little over 100 years ago. And they came up to Palestine. They wanted another land. Uganda, Patagonia. They were looking for a lush and fertile land, but they decided they need mass amounts of backing. So they turned to Palestine and they put on this pious look, this facade of religion and claiming that the beginning of redemption, of God's redemption, and it's a Jewish state. And they grew beards and went to the Yemen, and they went to Morocco, and they went to the far lands, and they said, come join us for the beginning of God's redemption. And the Jews didn't want to follow them, so they had Jews killed, and they put panic in them. And the Jews fled, fearing that the Arabs wanted to kill them. And these are documented. This is all documented. They created animosity. They created a rift by dressing as Jewish people and calling themselves the Jewish state, to confuse that the Arabs and Muslims to think that the more the Jewish a person is, the more religious, the more he supports this occupation. And how false that is. What a terrible crime that is. Not only are they creating a selfish state, but they are using and riding on the bones of the Jewish people who are true to God. They are using us. And who suffers? The religious Jews, because we are the ones who appear as Jews, and we are considered the Jews who are supporting the state. We don't support this state. We don't support the occupation, and as long as God will give us strength, with God's help, we will stand up and demand the end of this occupation, the end of the occupation of Gaza, the end of the occupation of Palestine. It must end. It must end. It must end. It says in the Torah, why are you going against me? God says, why are you going? Why are you rebelling? It will not be successful. There's not a 10 years that a major war doesn't happen over there. Why do you find that people assimilate, that people usually will find homes and they will somehow become part of other nations, and yet you find refugee camps full of Palestinians, and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Iraq, in Jordan, and in Lebanon, all over the place you find these refugee camps. Why? Because God does not allow these people to simply disappear. They will return to their homes soon with God's help. Because Zionism has no right according to the ruler of the world, the Almighty. God does not allow them to have this occupation. We don't understand God's ways. We don't know how much more suffering, how much more bloodshed it will entail, but it will end. We pray and we urge everybody to pray to the one who can accomplish the Almighty, that he should see with his compassion to bring a speedy and peaceful dismantlement of this impediment to peace, this stranger to the block, this new movement of Zionism that came into Palestine. Remove it so Jews, Muslims, and Christians can embrace and serve God in peace as we've had throughout history. My colleagues in Palestine, since the creation of state and even prior to that, stood up and cried out and pleaded with the representatives of the United Nations. And there are the records in the United Nations to show this. The chief rabbi of Palestine, I'm quoting, has said, in 1947, to the representatives of the United Nations, his name was Rabbi Dushinsky of blessed memory, he said, we furthermore wish to declare that we don't want the Jewish state in any part of Palestine. This was in 1947, prior to the creation, to the ratification of the state by the United Nations. And since then, and prior to that, Jews have been standing on the streets of Jerusalem. And maybe the first famous martyr was a Jew. His name was Dr. Dahan. He brought the chief rabbi of Palestine in 1924. Rabbi Sonnenfeld of blessed memory, to the king of Transjordan, and he gave him a letter to show his loyalty to the king of Transjordan and say that we have nothing to do with the Zionist movement that's coming up from Europe. What happened to this Dr. Dahan? He was summarily executed in front of Shari Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem. A famous man, Dr. Dahan, you can check the records. This was in 1924. And since then, there's killing, there's incarceration, brutally beating Jews, and we're not armed. They cannot say we're throwing missiles, we're lobbing missiles. We don't have missiles, we don't have guns. We stand, we have voices, and we stand on the streets, and they brutally beat us and intimidate and kill us because we are Jews and we are covered to the world and reveal the truth that Judaism is not Zionism, and Judaism will never countenance Zionism or the occupation in any shape, manner, or form. Although we have to plead to the Almighty for the removal of this cancer, of this tumor on the Holy Land called the State of Israel, at the same time we cannot be silent. God wants of us, just as God is righteous and just and compassionate, that we, although we don't know, accomplishment is in the hands of the Almighty, but we should never become frustrated. We have to stand up and demand and cry and plead with our distinguished representatives of the United States of America and of every country, just as we understand today when South Africa was flourishing as an apartheid state, flourishing and recognized as a distinguished country, a seat amongst the other countries in the United Nations, and Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. This was ongoing, and all the countries did business with South Africa and went on their merry way. What stopped this? The grass grassroots people like you and me stood up and said, no, we cannot accept this, and we kept on nagging and haranguing and pleading with the politicians, stop this Nakba, stop. And with God's help, eventually they became uncomfortable with their position, and it was stopped. And today, it is very clear that apartheid is not acceptable. I don't think anybody could sit down at his dinner table and explain how apartheid is acceptable. It's clear. It's a base logic. That same base logic demands the freedom of Gaza.